What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Season 4, Episode 4 of the SurgeCast. I'm Bailey.
I'm Kat.
I'm Zach.
And there's been a bunch of news, good news for the Hurricanes to kind of chat about. And we have an episode coming to you guys later this week regarding a lot of that news with a really special guest that I'm hoping you guys will tune in for. But today is a little more kind of on the sad side. Obviously, the news has been out for a little while since it happened Thursday night. It was announced Friday morning that Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew have passed away due to a drunk driving incident. We just wanted to kind of take an episode to pay our respects and remember the great sport that Johnny Gaudreau was part of and the player that he was and the person that he was. First off, want to send our condolences. Our heart goes out to not only the Gaudreau family, but his friends, his teammates, and anybody part of not just the Columbus and Calgary communities, but the hockey community as a whole. Something that really spoke to me as I was kind of thinking about the situation was that rivalries exist. But at the end of the day, the hockey community, I believe, is one big family. And seeing how this has kind of affected the hockey community as a whole really is, I think, a testament to that. To talk about Johnny Gaudreau and the legacy that he left behind, we do have Calgary fan and our boss, Kyle Manifold, joining the podcast. Kyle, how you doing?
Not bad. How's everyone doing?
All right.
Yeah.
It was a rocky start to the holiday weekend, and a kind of a weird one for Canes fans, especially because we recognize the talent and recognize what was just lost in the hockey community, but not just hockey community, but for many friends, family, fans. But then we also get some good news on our end, so it was a weird. And then you're at a weekend with family and friends, time off work, time to relax, and it's hard processing all of these emotions, especially when it comes to a player like Johnny Gaudreau, which I know you are very familiar with. I see the jersey in the background. As a Flames fan, you're going to have probably the most to speak to about him on this episode, which is why we love to have you on. But hey, his last goal was against the Carolina Hurricanes. Gotta love that.
It's a bittersweet one to look back on.
Bittersweet. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and then Zach, I know it's kind of interesting for you being an Ohio native. You kind of have a unique kind of position here as well.
Yeah, very unique. Yeah, I'm actually wearing my Columbus Blue Jackets t-shirt tonight. It's not Johnny Gaudreau, it's Zach Rinsky, who's my favorite jacket. So kind of, wanted to kind of pay some respects to my Ohio roots. Yeah, it's, kind of followed them for a while, even when they first started around. Of course, it was, at that point, it's Hurricanes and whoever else, at that time. And just over time, just kept watching more and more, and then started, getting into the hockey Twitter and getting a lot of mutuals from back home in Ohio. And just being from there, I've been to Nationwide before. It's a really great arena if no one's been to before. So, yeah, it's a very weird, being an Ohioan who's, kind of grown more into the Jackets over the last few years. And just, seeing guys like Rick Nash and, Hartnell and Adam Foote and, and then Johnny Gaudreau comes over, which was a really big surprise because he came over like right around when I was doing another podcast, but even before this one. So and then, you get the Sean Monahan news that he's coming to Columbus too and wanted to reunite with Johnny. And it's kind of like, not even like what was it, Kyle, a day or two before, or like that same day or something like that?
It was the day before everything happened.
Yeah, it's like he's on with Pete Blackburn and I forgot, was it What Chaos? He's just talking. They're like, oh yeah, I'm so excited to be with them. And then it's like you see the news, and then you see the video of them in Calgary together in the tunnel. And you're just like come on, So it's definitely bittersweet for sure. So yeah, sorry for the long-winded answer, but. Yeah, just, being an Ohio native and someone who's been, liking the Jackets for a while as a second team to the Hurricanes. Yeah, it's definitely a bittersweet type of thing, seeing someone like Johnny and just how much he's impacted Columbus just with the fact that a big name like that's like, yeah, he wants to come there, which you don't see very much of often.
Which I want to kind of touch on too, because that whole free agent signing situation was very, very interesting because it's something that kind of took the entire league by storm. Like, oh, Columbus, why is he going there? I know Calgary fans were super upset about it when he left. I know a bunch of other fan bases who were in talks for him to potentially go to their team. It was really like, why the heck would you go there? But Columbus fans were so excited about it because they were getting somebody who's really kind of paved his own path to the NHL, who really like took his size and the player that he was into consideration and made that name for himself. I mean, there's a reason he's called Johnny Hockey, and that's something I'd love to get into here in a second. But Kyle, I'd love for you to kind of touch on the impact he had on Calgary, especially as a fan who's been able to kind of see his development from beginning to end in Calgary.
Oh, yeah, I don't even know where to begin. It, it really all started kind of when he got drafted, right? And, really being into this team ever since I was young. You kind of watch him throughout the system and that he's the type of guy that can kind of come in and make an impact when people weren't expecting it. You touched on Sean Monahan a little bit earlier. I don't think people truly understand the relationship those two had throughout their time in Calgary and obviously afterwards and, up to the present day. So, their relationship was just second to none. And I think it showed multiple times, throughout their careers and throughout their, on and off the ice. Right. That's just the type of guy who Johnny was. And especially off the ice, Johnny, I thought was really impactful too, because of just kind of what he did with the community, not only in Calgary, but also what he was doing in Columbus as well too. And I thought that's just something that was really important. And, it was a tough weekend for myself and for some of my friends who are Flames fans as well, and it was tough. It was tough to go through that and not really accepting that this happened. And we're today on a Tuesday, and it feels like you're still not accepting that this is something that transpired, right? So yeah, it's a matter of how do you move forward with it, right? And you just you kind of do what I think her name, it was Meredith, I believe, Johnny's wife, who ended up posting how she basically celebrated his life and how it was a privilege to know him throughout their entire time together. And I think that's the best way to look at it, right? It's the fact that we just had a privilege to watch him and have such a rarity of the name Johnny Hockey, and I know Bailey will touch on that soon. It was really just an honor and again a privilege to kind of watch him and screaming my lungs out and waking people up at midnight when in the Eastern time zone when the Flames won Game 7. You go back to that memory, and you can think of so many as well too. I'm sure they'll come up in the coming days and weeks of other highlights, but really it's just about kind of honoring it and just saying thank you really to being able to watch the type of player in person that he was able to become. And, it's a shame that it was unfortunately cut short, but it doesn't mean we can't celebrate it as, seasons come along and just never forget. And that he was just an overall great guy.
Oh yeah. And when you look at the videos too of like, what was it, him with Monahan and Lindholm, and they're just scoring the purple Gatorade, and they were like one of the most like insane lines for the Flames, where you're talking like the numbers that they had together, and then it's just even going back to BC, scores a game-winning goal. He iced the cake for BC's national title goal, and then just scores his first goal in his first game with a number that I don't think a lot of people even remember, and it's 57, and then now he's 13, and then just lights up for the Flames. And then the thing with his wife Meredith, I think it was on social media that she shared a reel or remix or whatever that new feature is called. But it was a friend of theirs had a video of them at her bachelorette party or wherever they were at her parents' house, and he snuck over there 3 separate times. And it just shows I don't think there's anyone who's going to touch that bar of being in love with someone so much that you leave your own bachelor party 3 times to go be with someone you're gonna marry the next day. Like,
Well, it also
it's tough to do it one night. It's just 3 times in one night.
It speaks to his desire. Like it said, family always came first.
Mm-hmm.
The NHL was trying to get him to come and be a professional hockey player, and he stayed one more season to play with his brother at Boston College. He saw that his brother was going to be able to play with him, and he said, "No, I'm staying." And then, of course, they get to win the national championship there, and so he got his brother by his side. That's amazing. And I mean, that was also one of the answers. Like people were like, "Why did you choose the Columbus Blue Jackets?" And it was like it had to do with family.
It's a day's drive away from where his family was.
Yeah,
everything he did had to do with family, which is like in the hockey world and also with professional athletes in general. You don't get those stories all the time. You want to, but you don't get them just because of the lifestyle they lead. So when you see someone so dedicated, you're like, "Wow, the way he's dedicated to his family, like this, he just wants to play hockey and he wants to be with his family." Like that's the basics. And they even had like many people had stories of when they went to talk to him and try to recruit him when he was at Boston College. They said they would sit there and him and his brother would just be looking out at the ice the whole time, where eventually they said, "Do you want to be out there instead?" And that's when they actually lit up and were like, "Yeah, can we?" And they said, "Yeah, we'll talk to your parents and coaches and everything instead." Like, go. Like he just wanted to be on the ice. He just wanted to play hockey. Didn't care about his size, just wanted to play with his brother, which we should also touch on. The hockey world loses Johnny Hockey, but they also, unfortunately, his brother was with him as well. While he's not a big NHL name, he got to play with his brother at Boston College, played in the ECHL, and then also was a hockey coach. So
he was a head coach of their high school team. I forget the name of the Catholic school.
Gloucester Catholic.
Well, it's also sad too because like him and his wife were expecting their first kid like
due in December.
So it's very sad for Trip and him. And then it's just the fact that like his sister too. Like talk about like you're getting ready to get married the next day and you lose your brother. It's like the night before.
That's one of the biggest things that I think struck me is that they were in town to celebrate what was supposed to be the happiest day of his sister's life. They were supposed to be at her side or up on the altar with her as groomsmen. And for that, I can't imagine what Katie is going through, the heartbreak that she's going through, losing her 2 older brothers. I mean, my heart breaks for her. My heart breaks for the memories that's going to bring back once her and her husband do maybe eventually decide to go forward with nuptials. Because I can't imagine that's going to be something they can go through without remembering something like that, and how traumatic that was. So my heart absolutely breaks for her. I did want to touch on it. I was getting ready to pull up the story too, but with all the news coming out with Johnny and a lot of the focus being on Johnny, there was a beautiful story that somebody posted on Reddit. I'm trying to find it. It was regarding Matthew Gaudreau and the time he spent I forget if it was the ECHL or if it was a lower league than that. But there was a guy who had come to play. He was on a tryout for the team, and Matthew Gaudreau was one of the first people to kind of come up to him, and it was like super excited to introduce him to the teammates. And I remember the guy specifically stating in the Reddit post, "I knew I wasn't going to be here for long. I knew I wasn't making the team. I knew I wasn't going to be sticking around here for long. And yet Matthew made that effort to get to know me, to introduce me to other people in the locker room, to make me not only feel seen, but make me feel like I belong." And seeing a lot of the stories that come out, especially Meredith had a beautiful tribute post to Matthew saying there was no John without Maddie. They were like 2 peas in a pod. They did everything together, and seeing the way that Johnny was with other people and making them feel included and having such a family and friend first mindset. Seems like Matthew was exactly like that. And he had a heart of gold, making sure everybody was included. Everybody felt seen. Everybody making sure they knew that they were there for a reason. And I think that story, I wish I could find it. It was a beautiful story. I think that was a perfect testament just to kind of shed some light on Matthew as well.
Well, like you said, two peas in a pod. Like there's videos of like Meredith showed one of them just somewhere, just dancing, no big deal, just gonna kind of just like vibing off each other and stuff like that. And of course, everyone knows. I mean, Kyle, we all know that video of him at the wedding on top of Breakachuk's shoulders.
And Matt Kachuk's just sitting there with his hand like, "Don't fall, please."
Yeah, he's just vibing and he's got his hand up. It just seemed like just life of the party. And the video that the Jackets posted, I think, is like almost like 2.5 minutes or almost 3 minutes of just just him being as a person too, and just how he was, and the fact that like it was like when they passed the cap around, it's like it was always giant hockey because he was how he was as a person. And another thing that really struck too, which is I always found a very interesting story, was the noodles with no sauce and just straight butter
noodles with dry meatballs.
Hey, you know what? Hey, well, the dry meatballs, that's one thing, but like the butter noodles, like I get that, because you can't go wrong with some butter noodles. Just going some basic like that. So I get where he's coming from on it. It's a
that's
classic.
Like the pure definition of carb load, right?
Pretty
there.
much, yeah. So and it's very underrated, but it's just the stories, and the thing that really struck me a lot too was just the tributes from the Flames and the Jackets fans. Like the memorials at both arenas just kept growing and growing, and it just shows how. Yeah, he left Calgary. Kyle, you'll talk about a little bit more too, but like, yeah, I know it was probably frustrating. It was really sad to see him go, especially after a season he just had, which I think was like 100 and something points and just absolutely went off. But the legacy he left behind, they even kept that Flames fans are like, no, like we still consider him one of our own, even if it's not super long, but it's just the tributes are. Like, I don't know how you don't look at those tributes and not get teared up just from the fact of the fans wearing good Joe jerseys and pucks and T-shirts and all the stuff given. And then even the Calgary Stampeders of the CFL, and even were wearing Joe jerseys. So it's like, it's like I've already cried enough, and now I'm seeing like more like tributes and stuff like that. Even like Major League Baseball teams and stuff like that. Like the Reds,
the worst,
Ohio football.
Yeah.
The worst was seeing videos of little kids outside the Saladome crying. Like that's what got me, right?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And when kids in Columbus are like handing their like little like giant Gaudreau sticks over him, I'm like, oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah, and to speak like just you bring up like him leaving Calgary and like the legacy and all that, just like for his entire career, like him leaving, I can't speak for every Flame fan, but you fulfilled a contract. You fulfilled your obligation. There's no need to have that sort of pressure to stay. Like you have the option to do what you feel is necessary. And for him, it was family first. And you imagine that if Matthew was ever put in those shoes as well, the same thing would have happened, right? It's always family first, and that's the only thing that came up. And I think from kind of speaking around a bit more and just talking around to just our fan base is that, it's become more of an understanding that this is a family that is truly family first more than anything else. And, that's just one of the things you can kind of go look back on and go, well, I can't really, I don't like the fact that he's not on the team anymore, number one, but at the same time, you just have to respect the decision. And, ultimately that's just what it is. And it's what it's always going to be for that family. And also too, like last thing to touch up on, just mentioning the kids. I think that's something that gets lost in this. Oh, yeah. Talking about his story, and as well too with Matthew, like on the way up, being undersized, being small, being this and that, right? A lot of kids were looking up to him, especially Cole Caulfield, who mentioned on his social media too, where he idolized him, right? And there's a lot of kids, Trevor Zegras too, yeah. And so there's a lot of kids who idolize him, and you feel like that's only going to grow stronger now as we move forward, right? That you're going to get a lot of youths who play recreational or whatever it may be on the way up. You're going to get a lot of kids who are probably inspired by even just reading his story and saying, why not me, so to speak. And I think that's something that kind of gets lost in all this. And yeah, it's still going to be tough sledding coming up, but we're gonna be all right.
And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on next is, he's got his nickname for a reason. We mentioned we were going to get to it. He's known around the league, teammates and fan bases alike, as Johnny Hockey. And there's a big reason for that. And a lot of that comes from his size and the perseverance to succeed despite it. One of the things I thought was really cool is the story of how he learned to skate kept coming back up and up and up, and how his father threw Skittles around the ice rink to teach him how to skate. And I just think, again, that family aspect, but I think it also, his parents did a great job in instilling that perseverance in their kids. And that perseverance not only comes from, that want to succeed, but it's something you learn too. I think too. And I want to kind of touch on, why he's Johnny Hockey, why that perseverance is so important, Kyle.
Yeah, it is. It's going to live on for generations, right? And I think it just, even you talk about, the way, the story, right, and how he was brought up in terms of his size, and again, all this sort of stuff, right? That goes along with everybody else who gets told this and that, right? Like, you can't do this, you can't do that, right? And that's
There's
the
a
biggest
certain
motivator.
standard for people who play his position. Yeah,
For sure, there is a standard, right? And he completely changed it and made it his own, right? And again, I think that just, again, something else that gets lost in this is that, for anybody who's trying to, it doesn't matter if it's hockey, really. It can be anything in terms of any dreams or aspirations. The times where people tell you you can't do this is your biggest motivator, right? And he took that and ran with it. And, he proved everybody wrong. And I think that you can really, when you look back on this 10, 20 years from now, he really did it all, right, in terms of making it. And I think that was probably the dream outside of the Stanley Cup, which is, not important right now. He made it, right? And that's something that is going to live on for generations. And I hope that, that story gets told for my kids maybe one day, if I ever have any, and then, from so on and so forth. And you know what I mean, right? Like, it happens. And you want that to be told. And I think it's an important story to tell.
Go
ahead.
So if anyone's wondering why the name Johnny Hockey too, exactly. So it's a nickname from his time at Boston College. The fans there decided to nickname Johnny Hockey, but it was in reference to, at the time, there was Johnny Manziel in football was Johnny Football. So they said, well, we're going to call him Johnny Hockey, and it stuck. And it's even better as his family trademarked it, but they didn't trademark it to make money off of it. They trademarked it so they could use it like if they needed to have control over it later. And for an example, they even said if someone like if a cancer fundraiser or something needs to make money and uses it, they can have all the money that they take from using it. And so now you're thinking, well, that's wild because of the stuff they could have made with that name. But even now that name is going to stick around, and the things that it can be used for in this moment is wild. But I mean, I remember going to games and my dad would be excited anytime the Flames came bleeding. He'd be like, is Johnny Hockey playing? Like, he loved saying Johnny Hockey, and he'd be like, did Johnny Hockey score on us? And so it's probably one of the funnest nicknames. And people say his nickname goes up there. Unfortunately, he didn't have like a full career as them, but it's a nickname kind of up there as like the great one. Like
it's there.
When you get one of those nicknames, I mean,
it sticks.
It sticks.
Absolutely. I did want to kind of touch on some kind of important stats too. We talk about, the perseverance and the legend that is Johnny Hockey, Johnny Gaudreau. While last season with the Columbus Blue Jackets maybe wasn't his best, I want to talk about his last season with the Calgary Flames, which was a career best for him. In more ways than just points. The guy ended up with 115 points by the end of that season, which is, if I remember my stats correctly, 5th all-time for franchise points for the Calgary Flames, which again, we talk about the size, we talk about the standard set for forwards. That just insane in and of itself blows my mind. For a guy with quick hands, we saw highlight reels and videos showing up all over social media, just him weaving through people and somehow getting the puck to the back of the net. And that last season with the Flames kind of showed everybody, you know, that this guy, he's got something. And, you know, everybody can talk about, you know, well, the Columbus Blue Jackets maybe haven't been the best in the past few years. So maybe that's kind of contributing to his points, whatever. But he did end the season with 60 points overall in 81 games played.
Also, when we talk about him being small, for Canes fans, Jarvie is small, but Gaudreau was 5'6". Yep. And that is small for a hockey player. That's my height. And that is not even on skates. You're barely cracking it.
When he was measured in for the last season of the Columbus Blue Jackets, he measured in at 5'9", 163 pounds, which the height in and of itself is like, I mean, yeah, that's small, but 163 pounds? Good.
I think we're adding some skate height. I think we're adding some skate height.
There are stories of him and Matt both like stuffing pucks in their pants to get some weight on. It's like, yeah,
yeah, which I think is hilarious.
all the stories we've heard too, and of course, you know, with just, you know, from teammates, like you can always remember the I think it was the All-Star game in Columbus where I think it was it Vasicek that came back or Voracek came back and grabbed Johnny Hockey and used him as like his kid for the competition shootout. That was really fun. Yeah, it's just the legacy that he had on a bunch of guys around the league. And one other story, I think it was Kevin Hayes, like was a post of Johnny with his nephew and just say hi to his dad for me. And it's like,
say hi to Bo's dad.
Yeah. And the fact that like, we talk about all the people that like Kevin Hayes lost his brother and one of his best friends in the span of like not that far apart. And going even for Jackets fans, you lose Kivalenix.
This is something. Yep.
Not that long ago either. So like
they're not even done grieving Kiwi.
Yeah, that's like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's like it's not that long either. So it's like you lose Kiwi pretty quick, then you lose Johnny like this, and it's like both very freak accidents on both ends too. And it's like fireworks for Kiwi, and then you know drunk driving incident while riding a bicycle on a 2-lane road in South Jersey for Johnny. It's like. Yeah, it's just tough, but yeah, just you see like Matthew said something, you know, Kachuk made a post and Patrick Laine, Jaromir Jagr even did one too, and like that was just hit the one season he had in Calgary. Just the fact of how many people Johnny's touched. And
well, Johnny gave him
his last goal
on his last goal. So
you're talking like way back guys who've been on the league for a long time, guys who've played in the league with them, even the kids who came out, because we talked about Zegras and talked about, you know, Cole Caulfield. And yeah, it's just, yeah.
Well, you also have to, we've talked about it for Canes fans, we've talked about it with Slavin in the past, with Slavin being a Lady Byng winner. So was Gaudreau. Gaudreau was a Lady Byng winner. And before that, in his college career, he won the Hobie Baker Award.
Yep, Hobie Baker, best college player. Mm-hmm.
And for anyone that's not familiar with that, the criteria for that is strength. It's kind of similar to Lady Byng. Strength of character on and off the ice, contribution to the integrity of the team, and outstanding skills in all phases of the game, scholastic achievement and sportsmanship, and then it has to be a student and everything. But I mean, and then go along with the Lady Byng winner, and we all know the criteria for that as well. So, I mean.
And this is something
strength of character and integrity of this guy was like, it was way bigger than his size.
And this is something I wanted to pose to you, Kat, too, is there were a few things that were going on Twitter that were talking about how the only national level award, or at least at the national hockey level award that Johnny ever won was the Lady Byng in, what was that, 2017, I believe?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
There were a few different people I saw on Twitter mentioning, you know, maybe this is a renaming situation. Maybe we look at giving this tribute to Johnny. Since I don't know, just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
So
Totally.
I know what post you're talking about. So
It was
some
Jay
people
Fresh.
So they would say, I would support
What-
retiring the Lady Bing. It's 100th year anniversary and replacing with the Gaudreau Award voted by the NHLPA. The Bing is not the part that I didn't agree with was the Bing is not valued by players, and it's a joke that it's voted by the media just looking at who doesn't take penalties. So I know a lot of the posts and a lot of things surrounding that. It's coming from a lot of emotion. I do think there should be something honoring Johnny Hockey. Do I know if it's this award being renamed for it? Maybe, but maybe he also deserves his own type of award. There's a reason this award exists, and I think whether it's because Johnny doesn't. He is all about it. Like what he stands for does go into like it's why he won it. He might need his own award. But the part I didn't agree with, which again, it comes with a lot of emotion behind it. I don't think it's a joke award. In general, I know that we're looking at ways to honor Gaudreau, but I don't think it should be kind of spitting on this award because it's not really a joke. It's not just who takes penalties. It's about sportsmanship. It's about character of players. It's about, that's why when the list comes out of some of the votes and people are like, why is this player on it? Because they lead their team in like goals or they lead their team in like that. The rest of the criteria isn't what they do. Like that's not in their character. So I agree there needs to be, the NHL probably does need to do something to honor Johnny Hockey. When being an award, I don't know. That would be great. It takes a lot for the NHL to do big things like that. But I don't think you can.
I just thought that was really
relate to-
backhanded. Like how that post was worded, saying that this is an award that the NHL players don't.
Well, you're
care
like, let's
about.
honor this guy. Let's honor this guy who won the award. That's a joke. You're just saying that he won. You're not even honoring the guy. He won that award for a reason, and you're saying that he won it just because the media said he didn't take penalties. If you read everything about Johnny now, it's clearly more than that. So you can't be like it's a joke that he won it, but also let's change it for him. Like if in doubt, you change it to his name because he is what the award is about.
And maybe the criteria changes with that award too, right? That's probably what could happen. And frankly, it's going to take time, right? This is just sudden, right? So the NHL is clearly going to take some time to, think about what the best course of action is. In terms of organization, like the two organizations here to honor him with Calgary and Columbus, number 13 should never be worn again.
No.
That's just the standard. Like it'll never be worn again.
Absolutely.
And it should be up in the rafters for forever, right?
Yeah.
There was talks more or less in Calgary because there was a new arena coming of how they're going to honor it. And now there's talks of changing certain names and whatnot and what may be. But, the fact I think is pretty clear what needs to be done here by both organizations. And it's that number needs to go in the rafters forever.
Yeah, on the fact that they've both played each other at their home arenas too, so there's going to be two. I think going with what you're saying, Kyle. I think this should be a season where Johnny's goes up in Calgary, and then when they go to Columbus, then his number goes up there too. So you have a double ceremony.
I'm going to be a mess both those games. I'm going to be a mess.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be a must watch just for honoring his memory, but it's also going to be like. Make sure you have some tissues near you. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I think you'll probably, I don't think we've ever seen a double ceremony of the same number in one season. Franchises, but I think this should be the year where it's like, two ceremonies.
I think Columbus will do it. Do you think, I'm not saying in a bad way. Do you think that would be great if they did? Do you think they will? Do you think they'll retire?
For Columbus?
I know they'll honor him. I know they'll do an honoring service of him. Do you think they'll retire the number or raise the jersey?
In Columbus? Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. They have to.
For me, personally, I would love to see, I know they've already announced the national broadcast schedule. I would love to see some moving and changing around to get at least one of those games. If, the
It'd be
retiring,
tough.
it would
It'd be
be
very
extremely tough. But I would love to see some of those nationally broadcast.
Yeah, because I know, like, even I know it's automatically on ESPN Plus. I know it's just maybe. Yeah, I hope they figure something out for it, because I mean it's one of those things where it's like it's so sudden and so unprecedented, but it's just one of those things where you kind of hope that the NHL's kind of already working on making at least one of them, or at least both, hopefully both of them, but at least one of them be a memorial game on national TV, just to do something like that. But
and last thing I'll say on this, I think the part that frustrates me the most is ESPN, and how you have shows like, now I'll give credit to the one, I think it's Get Up, where they did honor, and it was right off the top of the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they go into First Take, they go into Pat McAfee's show, and it's all college football. And they've advocated it, and they've done things in the past where they bring on Gary Bettman, they bring on big name players, and they're starting to try and incorporate hockey more into their network. Not honoring him and not even mentioning him is such a slap in the face.
The thing for me is ESPN's made it perfectly clear where their priorities lie when it comes to hockey coverage. And I think that's where a lot of that is. And I know there's been a lot of flack from not just podcasting personalities, but everywhere, that they'd love to see a lot more hockey representation. And it's because it's a smaller market. It's not as big of a market as college football. It's not as big of a market as the NFL or the NBA and things like that. And I don't think people realize that, you put it up there more, people are going to watch it. People are going to get into it. It's a fun, fast-paced sport. But it's because of those priorities, I think, where a lot of them really drop the ball. And I'm not giving any excuse of any sort. I would have loved to have seen acknowledgement.
You're right. There's no excuse. It takes the guy on Get Up 2 minutes to go through it. And that's all
it's 2 sentences. My condolences to the Gaudreau family.
Also,
they can't even do that.
We're just a couple months removed from Stanley Cup, what it was everywhere. Like, even the people that didn't normally talk about it was still talking about it, because, I mean, David's on the TV. We're talking about it. We got to talk about it. Well, you got to talk about, I mean, I know that we have played, like, other, God forbid another athlete goes down or something. We just had the Olympics, things like that. You got to mention it. Like, athletes know athletes from other sports. Like, they cross over more than whether they're fans.
LeBron mentioned
the fans. Yeah, LeBron was shook by it. So many people, like, they know. So, like, you need to at least be like, hey, look at these other athletes that you cover all the time. Look at this college football stadiums putting honoring memory things up on their jumbotrons about him. Like, talk about that for a hot second and then get on with what you're saying.
This seems almost kind of shallow for me to mention too, but, like, use that as an excuse to mention it. If anything, like, you've got a guy like LeBron. You had a few baseball personalities who mentioned it. You cover them. Why it almost gives you a reason to sit here and say, oh no, this is really tragic. One of our players is talking about this. Let's talk about this for a second.
Well, also too, I mean, Philadelphia Eagles, he was Johnny and Matt were both fans of the, and one of the thing too is, like, and I can't really, I kind of wish, I know the NHL Network did a huge thing because, of course, it's hockey. And
it was on repeat the entire day. Yep.
But the thing too is, though, it's kind of hard for people to get that because the way that's kind of packaged way in the background too. So even then, that's also tough. So it's like, you kind of wish that if you're the National Hockey League, that you kind of make your channel more accessible so that people can actually see that, rather than having to, pay extra to go get an extra channel that they don't get. So it's just, I'm glad that the NHL Network did something for Johnny and Matt, but it's also kind of like, I wish you guys would be more accessible.
It's ESPN. You're supposed to cover all sports and news.
Well, ESPN, yes. Well, I'm also talking about the NHL Network. They also need to be more accessible.
But that's why I'm saying they shouldn't have to go to NHL Network to get that kind of news.
Well, no, of course not. But that's where we're at, though, unfortunately.
If they're non-hockey fans, they're not going to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the unfortunate part.
We could always ask for more But as we start to wrap this up, because we just wanted a short and sweet episode before we get back to our normal programming the next couple of weeks as the season starts. Kyle, do you have what are some of your best memories or performances of Johnny Hockey? I mean, I know you've probably got a ton, and I know you've mentioned one already.
Probably that one's going to be stuck in our head for a while. I think a lot of the ones that have been brought up on social media, I think I would probably say the same. His first NHL goal all the way back against Vancouver. I think that game 7-1 just sticks out in everybody's head. And there's so many you can count. There's probably ones I'm forgetting. And I think what's for me even too that I keep forgetting is I've seen him play live multiple times now in the Saddle Dome and sometimes in Buffalo and in Detroit or whatever, right? And and in Ottawa and on all that, and I forget that I've seen him play live too, and that's something that I'll always be grateful for as well. As I did get the chance to see him, and I know not a lot of people have that opportunity to go and see NHL games, and it's just something that I'm going to be grateful for, and just a difficult time right now, and it's going to take a while, but that's why we just got to honor him and just celebrate it best we can when the season comes up. And I mentioned it too. We dropped a video on our THPN channel today, just a short little tribute just for something. And I mentioned I'll be doing live streams for the Flames on the first one, and obviously when they play Columbus, we'll be sure to do that one as well.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was important to just to drop the donation bin as well too. If I can quickly mention it here, if you want to go check that out, just in the description. Really, you don't even have to watch the video. I think the description says for itself. There is the links to who Johnny did donate to quite a bit in Calgary. It was called Kids Sports, and then also in Ohio, it was Ohio Health as well. And then obviously the Calgary Flames and the Columbus Blue Jackets Foundation was another one too as well. I apologize, I don't know what Matthews was, but I think that's important to just kind of go look at as well if you have the funds to do so to go and donate. And it was tough getting through that today. God alone, I got this okay.
And also don't forget the one that Meredith did too for
and Meredith
yes. And so that was going to be.
We'll make sure to put them all in the description, comments, all of that, where you guys can go find all of these things.
I think last time I checked, I think that was already over 525.
I think so. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, awesome. So if you guys are looking at the next kind of almost last wrap up thing I was going to get into was, how can we honor his legacy? How can we as hockey fans make sure that Johnny Hockey and his vision is being remembered? So again, if you guys have the funds to do so, you can find those links in our description, the description of our episode, or in the link. I'll request that we put that in the link tree in our bio. If you guys are looking to support a little bit more, because obviously, Johnny, hockey player, made a lot of money. Matthew maybe wasn't as lucky, but there's a GoFundMe.
He made more than me.
There is a GoFundMe going around for his wife, who again is pregnant with their child and due in December. It is already again over $500,000 when the goal was set at $30,000, which I think is just beautiful. A lot of NHL players and everybody from the hockey community kind of coming together to make sure that they're supported. So if you have the funds to do so, I would highly recommend donating to that GoFundMe and making sure that she's helped out. If you don't have the funds to do so, the best thing you can do is just sharing those links, making sure that those links are getting wherever they need to people who maybe have that opportunity. So again, if you don't have the funds, you are still doing your part in sharing. You are doing your part in making sure those are seen and those are getting to where they need to go. Another thing, I want to kind of throw it back to you guys. Obviously, there's more ways than sharing links and donating money. Kyle, what are some ways that you can kind of see yourself and others honoring their legacies?
Yeah, I mean, you can obviously donate. I think that's probably one of the things that just immediately goes to my mind. But just paying respect and, just enjoying the game that we love, especially in the industry that it happened in, right? And for a lot of young kids who are kind of starting this, right? And just important to read and importantly learn about, how important these two were and how they got to where they were. And, just to learn about their legacy. I think that's probably one of the best ways you can give back, is to just understand what they went through and, how they got to where they were and truly their success stories at the end of the day. Yeah, it's probably one of the best ways to look at it, especially for young kids. And then obviously donate, but just to continue to enjoy, the game that we all love. And, because like them, I mean, you don't know the next corner, right? We don't know it. And that's why you got to take every day for granted. It's, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And, that's why I think, especially for us here, even at THPN, it's to understand that, we want to be able to put out, the best effort that we can, especially this season with what's happened. It's only right that we can be there as much as we can.
Zach, Kat, anything to add to that?
No, just, I mean, like Kyle said, just donate if you can. I just honor the memory, and it might hurt to share, but just share stories, just favorite moments, stuff like that, because I think honoring their legacy, it's still being able to not forget about them, but just kind of like memorialize them and be like, certain stories or certain goals or certain anything, just kind of just like what Meredith did, celebrate them, celebrate the life that, we didn't know them on a personal level, but just as, hockey players, and, get to see some personalities too, not as much as, Meredith and the rest of the family saw, but you still got to see some of it. So just, honor and just remember the impact that they've had, and just keep thinking about them and honoring them and sharing favorite stories. So,
yeah. I mean, I just echo the same thing that Sue said. Talk about them. You have kids around you wanting to play hockey. You have kids of your own playing hockey. Talk about them. Tell them stories about Johnny Hockey, about what he did in the league. Encourage kids. Show them highlights. I mean, we show highlights of retired players and talk about them all the time. I mean, do the same with Johnny Hockey. He was inspiring, and he can continue to be. I mean, even myself, I knew Johnny Hockey. Did I know the depth of what Calgary Flames or Columbus Blue Jackets? Did I know? No. And just looking up about him more and more and sadly, as this weekend occurred, like everything happened, I actually started to look more into him. And I'm disappointed I didn't pay more attention to him in the league. Like, I knew of him. I wish I had done more research earlier, because he was an outstanding player, but just the dedication to his family and what they've said about him, what his teammates have said about him, like, that is a guy that's really going to be missed. So I would just, use his legacy and tell your kids about him, tell your friends about him, kind of anyone that you can, because like that's what the fun of hockey is you get to sit and talk to your friends about hockey, and why not talk about Johnny Hockey with them?
Just to bring up one more story before I go into our last bit and then sign off. I just remember 2 years ago when we were drafting for fantasy hockey, not we, but I was in a different league, and I ended up picking up Johnny, I think in the 4th or 5th round. Once it finally got back to me in the snake draft. And I remember everybody looking at me on the Discord call, and they were like, huh? Why? What? Why him? Like, there's so many better players sitting up here, and he ended up being one of my best of the season. So that just I just remember being so proud of that, and I thought that was a fun little moment, and just kind of goes to show, he really was an incredible player, and even if you're looking at it from a fantasy point of view, like he really, not just to fantasy hockey, not just to the actual sport, but he had a lot to contribute to life. And I feel like just to end off, I would not be doing my due diligence if I didn't talk about the reason why we are sitting here talking about this today. The biggest thing when we talk about honoring a legacy and moving forward, guys, if you are ever in a situation where you find yourself drinking, or if you drinks in and drunk and unable to get home, please, please, please do not get behind the wheel of your car and drive yourself home. Ubers can be expensive. where in certain places, lifts, there are other services, they can be expensive, but none that are worth it. Nothing is worth losing your life or taking the life away from somebody else. So again, please, please, please do not drink and drive. Please put a system in place, have a designated driver, have a service on hand if you find yourself in a situation like that. Please also talk to your friends about this, family about this, making sure they don't find themselves in similar situations. Because this is a Carolina Hurricanes podcast, I did want to touch on the system that the Hurricanes have in place at PNC Arena. They do have a designated driver program in place at PNC. If you guys are able to get out there and find yourself drinking in a situation, they have a station set up outside of section 127 at guest services. If you ever need a ride home, they have a little bit more information for you. If you are not a big drinker or you want to find a way to do your part, you can also sign up to be a designated driver at that same location. Again, section 127 on the concourse outside of guest services. If you do end up signing up for the designated driver program, they do have a free soda voucher for you. So if nothing else, you get a free soda out of helping somebody get home safely. But I do encourage, if you guys do have the opportunity to sign up for that, become a designated driver, I highly, highly encourage it. Especially, parking situation at PNC is already hectic enough. So if you're not driving, you find a ride, and you might be able to find a ride home if you find yourself in an inebriated situation. But again, if you guys are, just make sure that you guys are not drinking and driving. If I can stress anything, it is that.
And just to add on, if you wanted to learn more about the safeties and the dangers of it all, for at least Canadians, I think it's the US as well too. MAD Canada, or I don't know if it's in the US.
MAAD.
MAAD.
Yeah, Moms Against Drunk Driving, or whatever it's called. Yeah,
correct. That's the place to go.
Yeah. Real quick. So the Blue Jackets did put out. There's going to be a candlelight vigil, 7:30 on Wednesday when everyone hears this. It will be on the east entrance of Nationwide Arena at Front Street Plaza. So make sure if you're in Columbus, 7:30 for that. And then if you're in Calgary, there's also going to be a Calgary vigil for their candlelight. That's at 8:00 Mountain Time, and they're saying it's outside of the arena. They doesn't say where exactly. Oh, west entrance.
West entrance,
which is where that's where the memorial was anyway.
Yeah. So if you're able to, 8:00 Mountain, and then 7:30 Eastern in the Eastern time zone for the Jackets and the Flames, that's where you can do that. So when you do listen to this, it will be tonight essentially. But yeah, if you can, I would say go and do that. I wish I was able to be in Columbus for it, but unfortunately can't make it. But yeah, if you are in those areas and you want to pay your respects, I think definitely going to the candlelight vigil would be, something to do. So
absolutely. That's all we have for this episode. Again, want to pass our condolences along to the Gaudreau family, to the respective Calgary and Columbus organizations, as well as the hockey community as a whole. Again, we are one big family. And so when something like this happens, it affects all of us, I think. And it's been a very heavy, while again, there has been some exciting news in respective fan bases, this has all been an incredibly heavy holiday weekend as well as a start to the week. So again, love and condolences to anyone affected by this, especially his family and friends and teammates. I personally want to offer to anybody, if anybody is kind of struggling and needs an ear to talk to, my DMs are open. So if you need a friend to kind of reach out and grieve and talk and kind of trade stories and things of that sort, my DMs are open. Please do not hesitate to reach out. Zach, I will throw it over to you if you want to kind of give a shout out to our link trees before we take off.
Yeah, just on the podcast Twitter, got a link tree. Same thing on Instagram and YouTube. Just go check them out. Pretty simple. SurgeCast on everything. Yeah.
All right. And with that, guys, we will go ahead and sign off. Again, we have an episode coming out later this week, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Bailey.
I'm Kat.
I'm Zach.
We'll see you next time here at the SurgeCast. Bye, Kyle.
Later,
We're all
guys.
13 right now.